Hey there and welcome. Today we're diving into a skill that's basically a superpower for your brain. It's called deductive reasoning, and it is the absolute key to getting crystal clear on things and making truly rock-solid decisions.
I mean, just think about that for a second. What if you could completely eliminate guesswork? No more assumptions, no more "I think so," just pure, cold, hard logic guiding you straight to the right answer. Well, that's the promise of deductive reasoning, and it's a skill that absolutely anyone can learn and get better at.
So, here's our game plan for this explainer. First, we're going to solve the puzzle of what this skill even is. Then, we'll look at why it's such a game changer at work. And finally, we'll break down what it looks like at different skill levels, from just starting out all the way to total mastery.
Okay, let's jump right in. For this first part, I want you to put on your detective hat. Seriously, because when you get right down to it, deductive reasoning is all about thinking like the world's greatest investigators.
Here's the most important rule of the game. Deductive reasoning is all about reaching a conclusion using only the information you've been given. That's it. You can't bring in facts from the outside, you can't make an educated guess. Everything you need to solve the puzzle is right there in front of you. And this right here, this really draws a sharp line in the sand. You see, deductive thinking isn't about what might be true or what could be true. It is all about figuring out what must be true based on the evidence you have. Assumptive thinking is just speculation. It's a guess. Deductive thinking, that leads to logical certainty, and that is a huge, huge difference. All right, so now that we know what it is, let's talk about how this kind of abstract mental skill transforms into an absolute superpower in your day-to-day professional life.
Just think about it for a minute. Let's say a company policy says employees with over 2 years of service get extra vacation, but only if their last review exceeds expectations. You don't have to guess if your coworker qualifies. You just check 2 facts, their start date and their last review. It's a clean, simple yes or no. This skill lets you slice through confusion, follow complex rules, and solve problems not by finding the right answer, but by logically crossing off all the wrong ones. This quote just nails it, doesn't it? When you operate from a place of fact, not assumption, you just make fewer mistakes. Your decisions are solid, they're easy to defend, and you build a reputation for being clear-headed and reliable. You're responding to reality, not just your own version of it. And look, while this skill is useful for pretty much everyone, in some jobs it is absolutely non-negotiable. If you're in a field like HR, operations, auditing, or customer service, anywhere that following strict rules and getting it right every time is critical, well, deductive reasoning isn't just a nice skill to have. It's the entire foundation of your job. Okay, so let's shift gears and make this a little more personal. We're going to talk about what these different skill levels actually look like. Now, these ranges are based on assessments like the one from the Humanology Assessment Center, which is called Humetrics. It's designed to evaluate this exact skill. So let's dive in and see how to interpret where you might be. First up, let's take a look at the 0 to 25% range. Now, if you find yourself in this range, it usually means there's a strong tendency to jump to conclusions or rely on assumptions instead of sticking to the facts. But here's the great news. Your starting point is super clear. Your path forward is really straightforward. Slow down, read carefully, and make a conscious effort to use only the information given. Honestly, with that focus, you can make progress really, really quickly. Okay, moving on up to the 25 to 50% range. So in this zone, you've definitely got the basics down. You can follow simple, one-step rules, no problem. But your accuracy might start to dip when things get more complicated, with lots of moving parts. The strength here is that you have a solid foundation to build on. The key to leveling up is to really practice with those more complex, multi-step problems to build up your consistency and confidence. All right, let's pivot and talk about what it looks like when you have a really solid grip on this skill. Now we're moving from building the foundation to sharpening a real strength and making it something special. So what if you're landing in the 50 to 75% range? Well, this means you are solid, you're dependable, you're consistent, and people can trust you with rule-based thinking. That consistency is your absolute key strength. So what's next for you? It's about enhancing your speed and precision, especially when you're under pressure. It's about taking that reliable skill and making it lightning fast and accurate, even when things get chaotic. And that brings us to the top tier, 75 to 100%. A score up here? That means you have an advanced logical mind. You don't just get the right answer, you get it fast.
You can untangle incredibly complex rules and scenarios with high accuracy, even when the pressure is on. For you, development isn't about learning, it's about fine-tuning. It's about maintaining that peak performance by tackling the most ridiculously complex problems out there.
No matter where you might fall on that spectrum, the most important thing is simply knowing where you stand. That self-awareness is everything. It's the launchpad that gives you a clear map to developing one of the most powerful and practical thinking skills you could ever have.
So, we've gone through the evidence, we've laid out the facts. There's really only one question left. How are you going to use this? What problem? What tricky policy? What big decision is just waiting for you to apply some of this airtight logic? The case is yours.